Today is December 1st. It's my sister's birthday. Happy birthday. And this video is going to be very difficult for me to record. Back, I don't even know how long ago I posted that. Back in October, I believe I made a post. I'm a little sick, so excuse that too. Back in October of 2022, I made a video that I was pregnant. I was really excited. I was 4 weeks at that time, and I was excited to make my follow-up video to show you guys how far along I was and everything. I'm going to try to backtrack on dates and stuff, but I'm really not probably going to be accurate on anything. First off, I'm making this video as difficult as it is. I deleted my first video, and I wasn't going to make this because it's really hard. But I felt like in the end, to help others going through it, other women going through it, to not feel so alone, I just wanted to share my story. I'm still very much angry and sad that this is my story, but my husband and I have been trying to have a baby since February of 2022, and so I've been taking prenatals since February. I was taking an iron pill, but my doctor told me that I probably didn't need it because I'd be supplying more blood. What my first kind of tip for everybody is, if you are taking prenatals, make sure you have iron in your prenatals, because the prenatals I had, my doctor did not even ask what prenatals I was on or anything. They did not have iron in them, so I thought I'd have to supplement by taking another iron pill, but he said not to, so I stopped that. But I don't know if that, there's so many things, like I'm just the type of person, even though they're like, it just didn't form correctly, I still think, was any of this part of why this happened. I miscarried on Thanksgiving of 2022, so November 24th, I miscarried my baby, or my chance of having a baby. On November 8th, I got way too excited, I think, to go and see my baby. So I went to an ultrasound. At that time, I was 5 weeks pregnant. I think I thought I was going into 6 weeks. Yeah, I was actually going into 6 weeks of being pregnant. But when I went, they're like, you're only measuring 5 weeks. And I got a little annoyed because, and I think that's normal, because when everyone's asking when was your last menstrual cycle, it was September 25th. So everybody, every doctor, every sonogram person is like, okay, so you're 6 weeks, you're due in July 2nd of 2023. So when someone's telling me you're measuring early, you're measuring at 5 weeks, I was a little annoyed. So I went back. I believe I had an actual doctor's appointment on coming up November 18th, but I went a little early to another sonogram where again they told me I was measuring 5 weeks. So that's 2 weeks measuring 5 weeks. And I had a feeling at that time that something was not right. But they're like, sometimes we just measure early. Maybe you ovulated early, maybe blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, maybe. November 18th came, and I got in with my OB, and he said the same thing. He's like, oh, it looks like you're just measuring early at 5 weeks. And at first he was like, do you have any questions? And I was like, well, I just want to see where I am. And then I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions. Well, we did the sonogram, and we did abdominally and transvaginally, both. He just saw the gestational sac, and he's like, yeah, you're just measuring 5 weeks. Goodbye. And I was like, wait, I had questions. And I'm like, if I'm measuring 5 weeks, then is that normal? He's like, well, what we could do is check her HCG levels. So I go that Friday, the 18th, to go check my HCG levels, and they were at 4,077. Yeah, exactly, 4,077. He's like, come back Monday and we'll make sure that they're increasing. So at the beginning of her pregnancies, they're supposed to double. So if they had doubled correctly, I should be in the 8,000s on Monday. This is the first sign something was wrong. I go in Monday, November 20th, and they're only at 4,300 something. So they did not double. They rose, but they didn't double. So I was trying to look at the bright side and being like, oh, they at least increased. And I went on a lot of forums and stuff, and a lot of people were saying at 5 weeks, HCG levels tend to taper off. So, don't be too discouraged, blah, blah, blah. And I think at that time, on the 18th, no, not the 18th, I'll go back in on Wednesday, the 23rd, and I'm like, I just want to see if I can see or hear anything. I feel like seeing is going to be more telling than numbers. So I go in, and the gestational sac had grown. It had actually doubled, and we could see, I'm going to put pictures, but we could also see the yolk sac. So I was feeling a lot happier on the 23rd. I'd basically been updating my mom, and I was like, I may not be going to Thanksgiving if I'm miscarrying and I have sad news. I'm not going to go and be around everybody. But I felt like seeing was more telling. So I was like, okay, the gestational sac doubled, and you can see a yolk sac, so we just need to wait for the baby to start showing. But something in the back of my head, my doctor called me about Wednesday, and he's like, because I think Monday he left me a message saying it's an unhealthy pregnancy. And I was at work when I got that, and I broke down and I cried, and I literally got in a ball in the back of the bathing area. I'm a dog groomer, so where we bathe the big dogs, I just curled up and I started bawling. And I already called out of work. I was like, I'm not going to be able to because I'm not here. I'm more concerned on if I'm having a healthy baby or not. And when he said it is an unhealthy pregnancy, I just automatically, it's like a gut feeling, I knew. And I called out and I told my manager on duty, I'm going to be miscarrying my baby and all that stuff. But Wednesday gave me hope. And I called my mom and I was like, hey, the gestational sac did grow. We can't see a yolk sac. I'm going to go with the more positive, and I'll see you tomorrow, the 24th, on Thanksgiving. And she was so excited, and she cried, and she was happy. But also since Sunday, I also have a history of kidney stones. And on Sunday, I began to start kind of light bleeding, light spotting. It started off as just a small bit of brown, like itty bitty. And then it began to start turning red, pinkish, and then red. And it began to increase. And so I was also spotting. But it never got to a point where when I put a pad on, nothing ever got on the pad. So I was like, okay, I don't know what this means. Again, I was worried about that too. But again, on the 23rd, with the gestational sac growing and the yolk sac, I was feeling more positive. So I called my mom and I was like, hey, we'll see you tomorrow. I had the ultrasounds all with me and everything. And I figured if the sonogram lady had seen something wrong, maybe she could have told us, but at the same time, she's probably not a medical professional. So my actual OB calls me, and he's just like, yeah, about your results. And he's like, how are you doing today? And I was like, I'm very confused. He's like, yeah, unfortunately, it's an unhealthy pregnancy. And again, I'm still trying to hold on to hope. And I'm like, does this mean I need to go to a specialist? Or point blank, am I going to miscarry this baby? And he's like, you're going to miscarry. And he's like, it'll probably happen within the next 2 weeks. You can either come pick up this pill that will help the process go by faster, or you could do it yourself. And I was already annoyed of this doctor. I feel like from the start, I didn't really like him. I only went to him because my original OB left. He was never caring. He never, I guess everybody else who goes to an OB gets like a packet as soon as and this is where I'm posting to help other women on what to know is not normal. So everybody else at my work who's had babies go in, say, hey, I'm pregnant. They get that positive pregnancy test. And then before the doctors being like, oh yeah, we'll see you in 3 weeks for your first checkup. They're like, hey, come on in. And, they set them up with like a packet of like what to eat, what not to eat, what to avoid, what not to avoid, things like that. Like just kind of an overall guidance. And I didn't get that. He's just like, okay, I'll see you in 3 weeks. So on the 18th. So for 3 weeks, I had no idea what was going on, except I kept going to sonograms, which, again, my overworking mind is like, did I do too many sonograms? Maybe that does disturb the baby. I don't know. So I have no idea, but I again put posts out there that my doctor straight up just told me I was going to miscarry. He didn't offer any like, come in. If you do start feeling cramping or anything, like any kind of signs, any kind of warnings, just if you feel anything, come on in. And after you do, like call me back and we'll set up a checkup to make sure you're okay. He did none of that. He's just like, you can take pills to help it go along faster, or you could do it yourself. Peace. Like, that was it. And this is the day before Thanksgiving. So as much as I put out there on forums, like, is this normal? Should I be worried that the HCG didn't raise? So many women, and I'm so grateful for all the positivity. I really am. But I feel like there was a gut feeling that as much as I didn't like what my doctor is saying or his deliverance or anything like that, he is the medical professional. And I just had this feeling, and I wake up Thursday. That night, actually, Wednesday night, I started getting the cough, sneezing, and my temperature started rising. So, but at that time, a lot of people were also calling out of work because this cold type thing is happening. We're having change of weather right now. So a lot of people were getting this, but I don't know, I just didn't feel good. So I took a nap and my temperature lowered. And again, I didn't know if I was going to go to Thanksgiving with a temperature because my mom, I don't want to risk her with COVID. I took a COVID test. It was negative. So on the 24th, my temperature was normal. It was like 97 or something. I did have a cough, but that was about it. I didn't even have the sniffing and stuff like that yet. So, but I was bleeding in the morning, and I think I was bleeding more that morning than normal. Like, it was beginning to become the kind to start looking out for, like the clump stuff, the clumpy, clotty stuff. And so I kept checking it. I was kind of driving myself crazy with checking it so much. Again, none of it was really landing in a pad or anything. But I called my mom and I was like, hey, I do have a cough. Is that okay to still come over? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And so we go to Thanksgiving. And it wasn't the happiest because I told her what the doctor said, that I was going to miscarry within the next 2 weeks. But I just really didn't want to think about it. I wanted to have a nice, good, happy Thanksgiving. And I am glad we did go because We got there at like, I think 1 o'clock, maybe noon, 1 o'clock. I don't even know what time we got down there. But we get down there, we eat, and I really wasn't that hungry. Like, I was hungry, but once I started eating, I wasn't eating much. And I began to start feeling kind of slight pains. It wasn't like normal, like in my sides, like a normal period would be. And it was more of like right on top of my stomach. So I told my mom that. I was like, I'm just sorry, I'm just a little uncomfortable. My stomach's hurting to the touch. Like it feels very sensitive right on top. And she's like, that's okay, just take it easy. And I'm like, okay. Well, the more and more it goes, the more it's hurting. And I go to lay down on the sofa, and it begins to come in waves, like get closer and closer, and begins to start happening in waves. And then I start to feel nauseous, so I kept running to the bathroom. I ran to the bathroom to throw up. I ran to the bathroom because I had actually, this is bad, this is a tip, do not, if you're pregnant, never once during your pregnancy from beginning to end, wear a tampon, because that can actually hold up a lot of bacteria in there. But I put tampon in because I was tired of overly checking to see how much I was bleeding. So I had to take the tampon out, but I wasn't bleeding enough for it to like, super gross, but to lubricate it. So that hurt like a bitch. I took that out. And then when I took that out, that's when like the flow started happening. And it hurt. It began to hurt a lot more. And I asked my husband, I was like, hey, can you go to the back with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. And it didn't really begin to like, it's hard for me to stand up because the contractions began to become back to back. And I knew it was probably happening. So I couldn't really walk too well, but I needed to continue throwing up and going to the bathroom. And when I wiped, like that's when more and more clots are coming out. And my husband was like, do you want to go back home? We live about 25 minutes away from where my mom is. He's like, do you want to go all the way back home? And I was like, it's beginning to hurt. Like, it hurts. Like, I have a really strong pain tolerance. I've gone through a kidney stone. I've gone through an eating disorder. I've gone through so much that I'm pretty good at handling pain. But this is beginning to double me down. And that's like how it was with the kidney thing, is when I start to double down and I can't walk, that becomes problematic. So it's like going from a 7 to an 8 at that point. And I was like, can you just ask my mom to come back here? Because I needed to start wearing actual pads because it is bleeding so much. But I didn't have any pads because, again, I put the tampon in to ignore it. Don't do that. She comes back, and again, I start throwing up. And I think I threw up everything from Thanksgiving. And this is all happening around 3 o'clock. And I could not find a comfortable place. She's like, do you want to lay down? I like leaned over her counter, and it just like contractions, like it was just going. And so I tried to like lean over the counter, that hurt. I tried to like squeeze in a ball, like when I had my kidney stones, and that hurt. Tried to lay down on my back, and that hurt, and everything hurt. But I finally they laid me, my mom and my husband laid me on her bed. And it just went from there. It just was contractions and full-blown labor at this point, and I could feel it. I could feel it pushing the substance out. And I was getting mad. Because I've had one in the past. I've passed a kidney stone. And now I'm having another one where it's like each time I keep being rushed to the hospital for them to tell me, oh, you went through the pains of labor pains, literally. But you're going home with nothing, and it just hit me that that's gonna happen again. I'm sorry, but it just hit me that it's gonna happen again. And I just started cussing and screaming, and it was uncontrollable. I could not control the amount of screaming I was doing. I know my mom hates it when people yell, but it hurt so bad. Like, I think I was trying to hide it from the time we got there till it started getting really bad. But once it started full-blown going, I could not hold it anymore. And my mom was like, you need to take her to urgent care here in town where she lives. And he kept looking at me like, do you want to go all the way back home? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I was about to literally push this thing out at my mom's house. But we finally decide, he looks up the directions. Sorry, I have to hold this thing and I'm not strong. But we look up the directions, and I knew where it was because I've grown up around that area. But my husband was also intoxicated because he drank a lot of the wine that night. And that was another thing. My mom offered me a Mountain Dew, and like, I hadn't taken any caffeine. I hadn't done anything. I was trying to do everything right. And I was like, I'm still going through that where I'm so used to like, no, I can't take caffeine. I'm not going to take the Mountain Dew, or I'm not going to eat sushi, or I'm not going to do things you're not supposed to do when you're pregnant. Like, I'm still in that mindset. But I thought, fuck it. If this is happening, I'll take the fucking Mountain Dew. And we get in the car, and it took my mom and my husband to like walk me out of the house, put me in the car. And it's literally like one of those movies where a woman's in labor, but I'm like, not even close to like where I should have been to be in this predicament. But I'm holding on to the little car thingy, and he's driving, and I'm going like the whole time. Like, it hurts so bad. We get to the emergency room, and they were so sweet there, and the lady's like, how can we help you? Because there's a chair, and I just had to sit down, and then I asked to use the restroom, and I threw up. I think I'd already thrown up all my Thanksgiving meal. I had thrown up breakfast, which I just had crackers, and then it was to the point I was throwing up bile. I was just so sick as well. And I go back, and my husband had already filled out all my information. And that's when, I was like, I think I told them before I went to the bathroom, but I was like, I'm going into, I'm actively having a miscarriage. That's what I said. And so they took me to triage, and we get in there, and they're like, what's your pain level at? And I'm like, it's going on a 9. Like, it hurts really bad. It also burned down there. Like, there was just so much. It just hurt so bad. And they hook me up to do all this stuff. They're like, we're gonna check your levels to make sure you're not bleeding out, you're not losing too much blood, all this stuff. And it took a while. We got there at like 3:30, I think, and I still was actively going through it, going through the process of my body removing what needed to be removed by 6 o'clock. At 6, when I got there to urgent care, they wanted me to pee in a cup, and I couldn't. Like, I don't know if I just didn't drink that much. I don't think my brain could process what they wanted because it was going through so much at the time that, like, I sat there for like 15 minutes and I couldn't. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, I can't pee. And they're like, that's okay, we'll get it later. So at 6, they come in to put IV or something in. And the guy's like, do you think you could pee for me? And I was like, yeah, I think I can now. It's been a few hours that I drank some water. But before he came in, I like felt my stomach. And I looked at my husband and I was like, is it normal that it doesn't hurt anymore? Like, it doesn't hurt. The level 9 and the contractions and everything, they don't hurt anymore. And he's like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm like, okay. So the guy comes in. He's like, do you think you could pee? I was like, yeah, I think I can. I go to the bathroom, and I was just like bleeding so much that I had to wait a minute to stop bleeding to finally pee. And when I still didn't have the cup under me or anything, but I kind of just like, I think I just barely tried to like push to see how things felt. And some big glob, super gross, super TMI, but a big glob landed in the toilet. I heard it more than anything. And I kind of just knew that was it. And again, I started gushing out blood at that point, and I had to wait till the bleeding like stopped overly doing it. I finally peed in the cup, but I finally peed in the cup, and then I had to clean up the mess I made because I was bleeding everywhere. And at that point, it's really gross, and it reminded me of Smeagol from, sorry, I'm looking at myself over here, that's why. It reminded me of Smeagol in Lord of the Rings, where he sees the ring in the toilet and he grabs it. But I kind of knew, it was just an instinct. I just saw this big glob in the toilet and I went to go just touch it, because usually this is super gross, but if like you have a glob thing, you know, a clot from a period, if you touch it, it will dissipate. This didn't dissipate. It was solid and it's kind of grayish. So I was like, I think that's it. So I picked it up and I wrapped it in like a billion pieces of paper towel. And I don't even know what I was thinking at that point. I just was like, grab it. So I grabbed it. I cleaned up my mess. And I go back in. I put it in my purse. I don't know what I was thinking. But I put it in my purse. And then my husband sees me. He's like, what are you doing over there? And I was like, I may have grabbed the remains, you know. And he's like, you may want to tell them because they can actually use that, test it, and blah, 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 all that stuff. So I was like, okay. So I was like, by the way, I kind of grabbed something out of there. And the guy at first, he's not a doctor. I don't even think he's a nurse. I don't know what he was. But he's like, oh, this just looks like tissue. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, but that's why they don't pay me the big bucks. They pay the doctors. So the nurse lady came in and she took a look and she was like, yeah, I think that's the gestational sac. And I was like, okay. And I kind of knew. And it's just been a whole on and off, like, mind thing. Because I think I really did get so used to being pregnant, even though it's... Oh, and they also told me they went and they did a vaginal ultrasound to make sure everything was okay. I wasn't bleeding. I wasn't, I didn't lose too much blood. And all that stuff in my ovaries looked okay. I do have a cyst on my right ovary, but that's perfectly normal. So many women have cysts and stuff. So, but they mainly want me to make sure I don't hemorrhage. So I did take a week off from work. That's a whole nother thing. But I really want to just either take so much more time off work or just quit. Because like, that's a whole nother thing. I can't even talk about work. Measured the gestational sac. And they measured everything. And she came back and she was like, how long did they tell you at your last sonogram you were? And I was like, well, they kept saying it was 5 weeks. And finally, it doubled to where they were saying it was 6 weeks. And she was like, it's going to be hard to hear. But you were on time. You were on track. You're 8 weeks. It just stopped growing. Though. Like early on, like around 5-6 weeks, it just stopped growing. So I was correct with it being 8 weeks. But it's just been a whole mind fuck of a journey. Like I've been trying so hard to keep my sanity intact from a lot of stuff, mainly work. I hate my job right now, like I really do. It hasn't been fun there. I'm not going to go into details and stuff, but it just hasn't been a good time at my work. And she even asked me if I had any stresses, and I just broke down because my job has just been so stupid lately. And I did have a panic attack at work because a certain individual just continued to get on to me day in and day out. And I even asked if they could stop because I didn't want what happened to have happened, because I was like in a full-blown panic attack. And they just didn't care. And then the next day they tried to start it all up again. And I'm just like, dude, I can't keep having panic attacks every single time I come into work. And it's just been so stupid. I just really need to find a new profession or something. I don't know. But it's been a whole change of pace. I've tried everything to do everything right for this pregnancy, and I know it's not right to go down and be like, what did I do? What could I have done better? Sometimes they just stop growing. It's so unfortunate. I don't understand. I think next time, what I've learned, because people are like, oh, to teach you a lesson, or whatever the fuck, but I do think things I have learned is next time I do get pregnant, we're not going to announce until after the first trimester, after we hear that heartbeat, after we see that it's growing. My husband and I are only going to try one more time. If I have another miscarriage, then I can't keep putting my body through it. I know many women out there have gone through like 5 or however many miscarriages before they get their baby. But me personally, it's really hard for me to, even right now, be like, oh yeah, I want to try again. But I do want to try again. I do want to, I know I can get pregnant. Again, I'm still looking at the bright side. And I even said that when I did get pregnant with this one. I was like, if anything, this teaches me I can get pregnant. It's just my update, sad story. But also take your time too I think I'm going to find a doctor that can actually give me the little pamphlet of what to do. And when I'm in my 7 or 8 weeks, because that's when this keeps happening, I'm going to go in and just have them do like a scan of everything. They check my blood type. One lady said it may be because I clotted. Another lady said it may just because I didn't drink enough water. Who knows? I have no idea. But I'm going to just try one more time in my life, whether that's anytime soon. The soonest will be February of 2023, and the latest will probably be sometime in 2024. Probably February or April of 2024. But that's the ending of this journey. To anyone who is pregnant, it was fun while it lasted, except for those short times at work where I hated myself and I was made to feel this small. And believe me, they succeeded in making me feel that small. But besides that, I love being pregnant and I miss it. Because, like, when I was in the car and stuff, like, they're like, oh, don't talk to your baby till, like, 8 months or something. But I was already talking to the baby, like, and I still don't even know what gender is going to be. I never get to find out, so I don't know. But in time, I'll heal from it. My body's already healing. I'm not having bleeding like I was. I think I'm past the point of being worried about hemorrhaging. Yeah. And then mentally, I think I'm okay. I think I can handle everything except for going back to work. That's just my number one anxiety. My number one, I don't want to go back. And I don't want to go back to that job. I have to go back tomorrow, but I don't want to. And I may not. I think I'm going to see how tomorrow is, and if it's too overwhelming or anything, I'm going to take another week off and hopefully maybe even find another job. I don't know, because I need to be mentally in a place where you just don't talk to women the way they talk to me, people the way they talk to me, let alone a pregnant woman the way they're talking to me while I was pregnant. I would never talk to anybody the way they talk to me, let alone while someone's pregnant. It's so fucked up. I'm sorry, it's just fucked up. But like, I'm trying to look at the bright side. I still have my husband. We're still married. Like, I saw someone's post that, like, yeah, they had their baby, I think a few weeks ago, but on Thanksgiving, their husband filed for divorce. So I am so grateful that I have my husband, the husband that I do. He's so supportive. He's so patient with me, and he's also very mature about it all. And I'm glad, even though it was embarrassing a little bit on Thanksgiving, to have been surrounded by my family. Sometimes I could feel like an outcast from them, but you let me know. Obviously, we are a family, and I am loved. And if things don't work out, there's always adoption. I was adopted. I always thought I could see myself adopting because I'm adopted. So maybe that's just our plan. Maybe that's just the path we're supposed to go down. But I don't know. After meeting my husband, like, neither of us ever wanted kids, especially naturally. But something about after we met each other, we kind of wanted just to see how it go. But if it goes this way one more time, I'll just give up on that. We'll just have a baby, either adoption or... I was also thinking surrogacy. Maybe it's my body that's the problem. And if we did my egg, his sperm, in another person's body who can actually carry forward the baby, that's also another route. We can always find a way. It's not the end. I do just feel bad. And I told my doctor this. I just felt bad because if I had known that was still a chance for me, I would not have done that. I wouldn't have gotten pregnant. I don't want to, put myself through it, and I would never want, like, that was a loss. Not really the loss of a life scientifically, but it was the loss of a possibility of a life. Like, that little thing was growing, it was doing something, and then we don't know what went wrong, but something went wrong, and I can't help but feel guilt that little being didn't get to grow and become something. That also makes me feel really guilty. And it's weird. And there's no explaining the guilt. And I'm looking at, like, instead of pregnancy day by day, I'm looking at, like, quotes and how to handle a loss like this. When I was younger, I just blacked it all out, but this is I think that's the hardest thing, is I was so ready and so preparing. Like, even my mom was like, I've never seen anybody trying to get as well prepared as you did. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's sad, but it is not the end, and we will try again. And if it's not in the cards for us, it's not in the cards. I'm not going to push my agenda on more future beings. So, that's just where I am. Thank you for watching. Sorry, I don't think I cried that much. But yeah. Thank you, and I appreciate everybody and anybody who watched this. Take care.